Mastering the CECDW Framework. Welcome to this training session on mastering the CECDW framework. In this video, we are going to look at a practical way of presenting grammar so that students do more than simply listen to a teacher's explanation. The framework we are going to explore is called CECDW. Context, elicitation, concept checking questions, drilling, writing. The central idea is simple. When we teach grammar, we should not immediately give students a rule and ask them to memorize it. Instead, we can guide students through a sequence in which they first encounter the meaning, then produce the language, demonstrate their understanding, practice the spoken form, and finally analyze the written structure. This approach can make grammar clarification more active and more learner-centered. Throughout this training, I will show you not only what CECDW means, but also what the teacher actually does in the classroom. We will use practical examples such as, the man is riding a bike, he used to smoke, and, I am used to running every day. By the end of the session, you should be able to take a grammar point from your syllabus and turn it into a short, structured clarification sequence using CECDW. So let's begin by understanding exactly where CECDW belongs in a lesson. CECDW is a specialized tool, not a complete lesson plan. The first important point is that CECDW is a specialized tool. It is not a complete lesson plan. This distinction is extremely important. Think about your whole grammar lesson. You may use a larger framework such as PPP, presentation, practice and production, or another lesson framework. That framework organizes the whole lesson. CECDW is much smaller. It operates inside the language clarification stage. For example, imagine that you are teaching a lesson about activities happening now. Your overall lesson plan might contain a warmer, a lead-in, an exposure activity, language clarification, controlled practice, and finally communicative practice. CECDW does not replace all of these stages. Instead, when you reach the point where you need to clarify a particular grammatical structure, CECDW gives you a systematic sequence to follow. For example, you want students to understand, the man is riding a bike, rather than immediately saying, today we are going to learn the present continuous. The form is subject, plus be, plus verb with ing ending. You establish a meaningful context first. You elicit the language. You check the concept. You practice the pronunciation. And then you analyze the form on the board. So think of CECDW as a micro-framework within your larger lesson framework. Your lesson framework answers the question, how will I organize the whole lesson? CECDW answers a much more specific question. How will I organize the whole lesson? CECDW answers a much more specific question. How will I clarify this particular piece of language? The 5 mechanical stages of grammar clarification. Now let's look at the 5 stages. CECDW stands for C. Contextualization, E. Elicitation, C. Concept checking, D. Drilling, and W. Whiteboard analysis or writing. Think of these 5 stages as a journey. We begin with meaning in context. Then, we try to get the language from the students. Next, we check whether students have understood the concept. After that, we help them develop the spoken form through drilling. Finally, we make the grammatical structure visible through writing and analysis. So the progression is context, followed by elicitation, then checking meaning, drilling, and finally writing. This sequence is important because teachers sometimes make one common mistake. They begin with the final stage. They write the grammar rule on the board and start explaining. For example, subject, plus be, plus verb with ing. Then they explain when to use the present continuous. Then they give examples. The problem is that students may know the formula without really understanding the meaning. CECDW reverses this process. We begin with something students can understand. Then we help them discover the language. Only after meaning and pronunciation have been established do we move to the mechanical form. So CECDW is not about making grammar teaching complicated. It is about making the sequence of clarification purposeful. Step 1. Establish context through visual or short stories. Let's move to the first stage. Contextualization. The principle here is, anchor the grammar in reality. There are two main ways shown in this framework. The first is a visual anchor. The second is anecdotal scaffolding. Let's begin with a visual example. Imagine that I want to teach the present continuous. I show students a picture of a man riding a bicycle. I don't write the sentence immediately. I don't tell them the grammar rule. I simply show the picture. Then I ask, what can you see? What is the man doing? Perhaps a student says, bike. Another student might say, he ride bike. Another might say, riding a bike. That's fine. At this stage, our goal is not perfect grammar. Our goal is to establish the meaning. The students can clearly see an action happening at the moment. Now let's look at the second type of context, anecdotal scaffolding. This is particularly useful when teaching grammar related to habits or past experiences. For example, suppose I want to teach, he used to smoke. I could tell a short story. When my friend was younger, he smoked cigarettes every day. He smoked when he was at university. But now he doesn't smoke anymore. I have not explained used to. I have not written the structure. But I have created the meaning. Students can understand. This happened in the past. It happened repeatedly, and it is no longer true. That is the power of context. The context should do some of the teaching for us. And notice something else. A good context does not have to be long. For a simple grammar point, a picture and 2 or 3 questions may be enough. For a more abstract grammar point, a short personal story may be more effective. So before teaching a grammar structure, ask yourself, what situation would make this meaning obvious? That question should come before. What rule am I going to explain? Step 2. Draw the target language from the students. Now we move to the second stage. Elicitation. The key principle is, do not give students what they can produce themselves. Once the context has been established, give students a chance to produce the target language. Let's return to our picture of the man riding a bicycle. I might ask, what is he doing? Students, riding a bike. I then pause. I might say, he, and wait. Perhaps students produce, he is riding a bike. Excellent. Now I can accept the answer and confirm it. Notice what I did. I did not immediately say, he is riding a bike. I created an opportunity for students to retrieve the language. This is important because elicitation turns students from passive receivers into active participants. The same principle works with used to. I tell the story about my friend. Then I ask, did he smoke when he was younger? Yes. Does he smoke now? No. Then I ask, so, what can we say? Students may produce, he used to smoke. If they cannot produce the exact phrase, I can scaffold. For example, he, pause, used, pause, he used to, and allow him to complete the sentence. The teacher becomes a catalyst, not the source of every answer. And this is where teacher waiting time becomes important. Sometimes the teacher asks an excellent eliciting question but waits only 1 second before giving the answer. That destroys the elicitation opportunity. Give students thinking time. Look at them. Wait. Use a gesture. Give a partial sentence. Give a keyword if necessary. But don't rescue them too quickly. However, we also need to be realistic. Elicitation does not mean students must magically produce language they have never encountered. If they cannot produce the target structure, we scaffold. The principle is, elicit as much as students can produce, then provide what they cannot. That is much more effective than simply announcing the answer from the beginning. Step 3. Isolate meaning through concept-checking questions. Now we come to one of the most important stages. Concept-checking questions, or CCQs. This is where we ask, do the students actually understand the meaning? And there is an important distinction here. A student can produce the correct sentence without understanding its meaning. For example, I say, he used to smoke. The students repeat, he used to smoke. Does that mean they understand used to? Not necessarily. This is why we need CCQs. The slide identifies 3 important dimensions: time frame, frequency, and continuity or current state. Let's use the sentence, "He used to smoke." First, we check the time frame. I ask, are we talking about the past or the present? Students: the past. Next, frequency. Did he smoke once, or was it a habit? Students: a habit. Finally, current state. Does he still smoke? Students: no. Now I have much stronger evidence that they understand the concept. Notice that I didn't ask, "Do you understand?" That question is almost useless. Most students will simply say, "Yes." Instead, ask questions that require students to demonstrate understanding. Let's take another example. The man is riding a bike. I can ask, is he riding now? Yes. Is the action happening at the moment? Yes. Did he finish riding yesterday? No. Is this describing a habit? No. Again, we are testing the concept. And we need to be careful when writing CCQs. A CCQ should not simply repeat the target sentence using different words. It should test the meaning that could be misunderstood. For example, if the target language is, "I am used to running every morning," we need to distinguish it from, "I used to run every morning." These sentences look similar but communicate different ideas. For the sentence, "I used to run every morning," we are talking about a past habit that is no longer necessarily true. For the sentence, "I am used to running every morning," the idea is that running has become familiar or normal for me. So the CCQs must reflect that difference. This is why CCQs should be planned before the lesson. Don't wait until you are standing in front of the class and try to invent them. Ask yourself during planning, what exactly could my students misunderstand about this grammar point? Then write questions that test those specific areas. Step 4. Build phonetic muscle through rhythmic drilling. After meaning comes pronunciation. This is the 4th stage. Drilling. And drilling is not simply asking students to repeat a sentence 10 times. Effective drilling has a purpose. We want students to become comfortable with the sound, rhythm, stress, and connected pronunciation of the target language. Let's take, "He used to smoke." A teacher may first isolate the core action. Smoke cigarettes. Students repeat. Then we add the target grammar. Used to smoke cigarettes. Students repeat. Then we build the complete sentence. He used to smoke cigarettes. Students repeat. This is a form of backchaining. We start with the end or a manageable chunk and gradually build the complete sentence. This can be particularly helpful when the target sentence is long or difficult to pronounce. For example, running every day, then, used to running every day, then, I am used to running every day. The important point is that students are not only memorizing the written form, they are developing the ability to say the language naturally. During drilling, we can use whole class drilling, group drilling, individual drilling, backchaining, and rhythm or stress work. For example, teacher, he used to smoke. Class, he used to smoke. Teacher, he used to smoke. Group 1, he used to smoke. Group 2, he used to smoke. Then select a few individual students. But don't drill mechanically just because CECDW says that. Listen first. If students are already producing the sentence accurately and naturally, you may not need extensive drilling. If they are struggling with the rhythm or pronunciation, spend more time here. The purpose is accuracy and automaticity, not repetition for its own sake. Step 5. Map the mechanical structure visually on the whiteboard. Now we arrive at the final stage, writing and whiteboard analysis, and this is deliberately placed at the end. Why? Because students have already worked with meaning, language, concept, and pronunciation. Now we make the structure visible. Let's take, "The man is riding a bike." We can write the sentence on the board. Then we identify the components. The man is the subject, because he is doing the action. Is the auxiliary verb, because it helps us form the tense. Riding is the main verb with ing added to it. Finally, a bike is the object, because it is the thing involved in the action. Now students can see the mechanics of the sentence. This is where we can introduce the form. For example, subject plus be plus verb with ing added. But notice the order. We did not begin with subject plus be plus verb with ing. We arrived at the formula after students had already encountered the language. This is what we mean by writing comes last. The whiteboard should make the language clearer. It should not become a wall of grammar terminology. For EFL learners especially, a clear board can help connect. We move from meaning to sound and then to form. The teacher can also use color, underlining, arrows, boxes, timelines, or substitution patterns to make relationships visible. But remember, the board should support understanding, not replace it. Whiteboard form manipulation, from positive to negative and questions. Once the basic form has been established, we can begin manipulating the structure. This is an important part of grammar clarification because students need to understand how the structure behaves in different sentence types. Let's start with the present continuous. Our base sentence is, the base man is riding a bike. Now we transform it into the negative. The man is not riding a bike. Or, in the contracted form, the man isn't riding a bike. Then we transform it into a question. Is the man riding a bike? Notice what happened. The auxiliary is moved before the subject. Now let's look at the second example. He used to smoke. The negative is, he didn't use to smoke. And the question is, did he use to smoke? This is an excellent opportunity to draw students' attention to a common grammatical issue. Notice, he used to smoke, but, did he use to smoke? Not, did he use to smoke? Why? Because after did, the main verb returns to its base form. Use. The same happens in, he didn't use to smoke. Not, he didn't use to smoke. This is why whiteboard analysis is useful. Students can physically see the transformation. We can use arrows. He used to smoke. 2. Did he use to smoke? We can highlight the movement of did and the change from used to use. This type of visual manipulation helps students understand syntax rather than simply memorize 3 separate sentences. So when you finish the basic form, don't always stop. Ask, what happens if I make it negative? What happens if I make it a question? What changes? What stays the same? This creates a much stronger understanding of the grammatical system. The synthesis matrix, scaling CECDW across grammar types. Now let's bring the 5 stages together. We will show how CECDW can be adapted to different grammar targets. Let's start with the present continuous. The context is visual. For example, a picture of a person riding a bike. The target language is, he's riding a bike. Our CC cues can focus on, is he riding now? Yes. Is the action happening at the moment? Yes. Then we drill, riding a bike. He's riding a bike. Now compare this with the past habit. He used to smoke. The context is anecdotal. Perhaps it is a story about a friend's past. The CC cues focus on, did he smoke regularly in the past? Yes. Does he smoke now? No. Then we drill, smoke cigarettes. Used to smoke cigarettes. He used to smoke cigarettes. Now look at, I am used to running. Again, we need an appropriate context. For example, I can talk about a teacher who started running every morning. At first, running was difficult. After several months, it became normal. Now I can say, I am used to running every morning. The CC cues could be, is running strange for me now? No. Is it familiar to me? Yes. Have I become accustomed to it? Yes. The important lesson is this. CECDW stays the same, but the context, elicitation prompts, CC cues, and drilling need to change according to the grammar point. There is no universal list of CC cues that we can use for every tense. There is no single context that works for every grammar point. The framework is stable. The teaching decisions are flexible. That is what makes CECDW practical. Planning checklist for the language clarification stage. Let's finish with a practical checklist. Before teaching a grammar point using CECDW, ask yourself 5 questions. Question 1. Is CECDW isolated strictly to the clarification stage? Remember, CECDW is not your complete lesson plan. Use it where it is needed, during grammar clarification. Question 2. Does my context anchor the grammar in reality? Can students understand the meaning through a picture, situation, story, timeline, or another meaningful context? If the answer is no, rethink your context. Question 3. Am I eliciting the target language rather than simply lecturing? Have I given students a chance to produce the language? Have I allowed enough thinking time? Can I use prompts before giving him the answer? Question 4. Do my CCQs test the important meaning dimensions? Depending on the grammar point, these might include time, frequency, duration, completion, possibility, obligation, habit, or current relevance. Don't use CCQs just because they are part of a methodology. Use them because they help you discover whether students understand. Question 5. Have students had enough opportunity to hear and produce the language before I write the structure? Remember the overall progression: meaning first, sound next, form last. So, let's put everything together one final time. When you need to clarify a grammar structure, don't think, I need to explain this grammar rule. Instead, think, I need to help my students discover and understand this language. Start with context. Give students something meaningful to see, hear, or imagine. Then elicit. Give students an opportunity to produce the target language. Then use concept-checking questions. Don't simply ask, do you understand? Check the actual meaning. Then drill. Help students become comfortable with the pronunciation, rhythm, stress, and connected speech. And finally, write. Make the structure visible, analyze it, manipulate it. Show students how the grammar changes in affirmative, negative, and interrogative forms. The key message is, CECDW is a practical sequence for grammar clarification, not a complete lesson framework. And perhaps the most important principle is this: err on the side of student-led discovery. If students can produce something themselves, don't give it to them immediately. If students can discover the meaning from a context, don't explain it immediately. If a CCQ can reveal whether they understand, don't simply ask, do you understand? And if students can process the language through meaning and sound before seeing the rule, allow them to do so. The teacher's role is not simply to deliver grammar. The teacher's role is to create the conditions in which students can notice, understand, retrieve, practice, and use grammar. That is the real value of CECDW. I hope this has helped you see grammar clarification as a practical classroom process rather than simply an explanation of rules. If you found this training useful, please like the video, share it with your colleagues, and subscribe for more practical teacher training videos.